It's day 27 of trial. I'm exhausted. I'm sure the attorneys in trial are exhausted. I'm sure you're exhausted. Yesterday was a lot of court to take in. I don't know if you're starting to feel incredible empathy for the jury. I'm sure you already have, but everything they see, they get to see once. They don't get to talk about it. They can't go back and like rewind and like watch it again and process it. They have to sit there, listen, and then they have to wait to process it together. And it is going to get harder and harder. A lot of you yesterday commented on how impactful the video was of Karen Read's Lexus being pulled onto the tow truck. I know that we saw it earlier in trial, but it seems that with the context that we have now, seeing it again in this point in the defense case in chief was hugely impactful and really made a difference, because even though the Commonwealth played it much earlier in their case, watching it now with everything you've known and everything you've seen and everything that you've heard about the case, seeing that pull onto the tow truck just hit different for those of you that have not seen it multiple times and maybe only saw it once when the Commonwealth played it, because they did not play it very much. I also saw a ton of comments saying that knowing that the Commonwealth did not call Officer Barrows, even though they called him the first trial, was like a period for you. It doesn't matter what he was asked. It doesn't matter what he said on cross-examine. A lot of you said you felt that he was incredibly truthful in cross-examination. He was incredibly forthcoming. And it's like, okay, so yeah, he saw stuff on social. They called him last time. They didn't call him this time, period. I don't want to hear anything else. They think that that testimony is bad for them. I don't care what he might have seen. He was truthful about it. So period. Those things were hugely impactful. And then seeing all the videos together, one by one, worked really well for a lot of you that had forgotten some of the videos being played earlier in the trial, because so much has happened since then. There was so much that happened in the cross yesterday of Dr. Russell. And part of me has to wonder if the strategy from Brennan was just to confuse as much as possible. It kind of hurts my head, because generally the strategy of prosecutors is to make everything clear and more clear. And it seems like Brennan is constantly trying to muddy the waters, which is typically what you see from defense attorneys that are trying to make things less clear. So it can be this, and then there's doubt. And Brennan sometimes is doing that. It's just so confusing to me. But one of the things I was thinking about that was so different and staggering from Dr. Russell's testimony yesterday was her talk about grief. The interviews, the statements at the scene, the statements to law enforcement, the statements to EMTs. She discounted all of those statements because of grief, because of immediate anxiety and grief. And a lot of you have been wondering about that, thinking about that, and saying, well, I don't know how much these videos hit because, well, they're all happening so close in time. She just found him in the snow. So there's shock there. There's trauma there. There's grief there. There's wondering, like, could I, what happened? There's questioning. And the defense couldn't argue that last time because no one got into it last time. But the Commonwealth didn't rely on Karen Read's statements as much as they are this trial. Let me know if you agree, but I feel like they're using her statements to duct tape over all of the other questions that you might have. It's like, what about this? But what did she say? Well, what about this? But what did she say? And I think Dr. Russell cut that argument for the jurors that are going to say she's questioning, she's having a trauma response, she's having a grief response. So how can we trust anything she says? It gives jurors evidence and words to talk to the other jurors. Is she blaming herself because of grief? Is she blaming herself because they were fighting that night? Or is it a confession? But the jurors can now argue about it. And depending on their life's experience, they now have a doctor backing them up. So whether Dr. Russell thinks this scratch came from a claw or this scratch came from a canine on a canine that's not also a canine, doesn't matter if the jurors are going to be saying, yeah, but I don't care about anything she said. The jury might have felt that way, but now they have evidence to back it up, and the defense has evidence to back it up. And while they didn't get into it more, I don't know if the defense needed to get into it more. I think they wanted to. I wanted to see them get into it more. But I think the defense is going to put that in their notebook, put it in their pocket, and we're going to hear a lot more about that when we get to closing argument. Because at closing argument, you want to tell the jury, the jurors that are on your side, because at closing, there are going to be some jurors, in this case, on the side of the prosecution and on the side of the defense. That would not surprise me at all. You want to give the jurors that see the case your way the language they need to convince the other jurors. Let them know how they can explain it. And Dr. Russell went a long way to do that.
And now you're approaching the intersection of Cedar Crest and Fairview again, correct?
Yes.
What do?
I take the right onto Fairview.
How was the weather at 3:30 in the morning when you're now in that area of Fairview and Cedar Crest?
It's snowing fairly hard now.
Do you recall how much snow? Recall how much snow was on the ground at that point?
Maybe 2-3 inches.
And at about 3:30 in the morning, how far could you see in front of you? Again, straight and diagonally in front of you.
As far as my eyes would let me see.
As a result of the lighting on your truck?
Correct.
Now, you take the right onto Fairview. Describe for the jury what you see in the road at that point.
As I make my right onto Fairview, I notice that there's a vehicle on the right-hand side, roughly in the area of the flagpole, in front of 34 Fairview.
Okay. And did you make note of what type of vehicle that was?
Yes.
What type of vehicle was that?
A Ford Edge.
What direction was that vehicle parked when you saw it?
It was parked nose going up Fairview.
Toward Chapman?
Yes.
So you're coming up from behind it?
Correct.
You see the rear of that vehicle?
Yes.
And was it parked adjacent to the Albert property, or was it across the street from the Albert property?
Adjacent to the Albert family.
And how close to the area of the flagpole was that Ford Edge parked at 3:30 in the morning?
I can't give you an exact measurement, but looking at the front door, it was about 3 feet to the left of the front door in the area of the flagpole, so in between the front door and the flagpole.
Now, what caused you to remember that there was a Ford Edge parked at 3:30 outside the Albert's residence that night?
For as long as I can remember, they have never parked a vehicle in front of their house. They've always had enough ample parking in the driveway.
What policies or protocols of the DPW are in force when vehicles are parked on the street or the road during a snow emergency?
There is no parking allowed. We are supposed to notify our supervisor when there is a vehicle in the way. At that point, the supervisor will make attempt to call the resident or have the police show up at the resident. And then if they can't get the car removed, the car gets towed.
Sir, did you follow protocol that night?
I did not.
Why not?
Knowing the Albert family, knowing that there was a first responder, I gave them respect and opted not to follow procedures.
During the pendency from that night until today, it's fair to say there are many times where you have been intimidated, isn't it?
No.
You've been threatened?
What?
Nope.
What?
You were aware, sir, that you were being threatened by an online blogger who
What?
exposed you?
I was not.
What? Are we seeing a pattern of cross-examination? Memory? Did the defense talk to you too much or make you testify about this, what have you? There is multiple cross-examinations now where this is the pattern.
You were aware, sir, that you were being threatened by an online blogger to expose you?
I was not.
You're saying as you sit here today, you have no awareness in the history of this case that you were being threatened by an online blogger?
I was not threatened by an online blogger.
Was the online blogger threatening or saying that he would expose you and tell personal things about you if you weren't helpful?
What?
He was not threatening.
Let's remove the word threatening. Was the person communicating and making clear to you that if you didn't testify in a certain way, there would be some consequence to you?
Objection. Can we get a time frame, please?
Any time from when you
The objection
first
was vague.
spoke to the private investigator
As to
until
time.
today, were there communications made to you by an online blogger that there would be consequence for you if you didn't testify in a way that was acceptable to them?
No,
You listened, of course, didn't you, to podcasts that were about you?
I did not.
People told you about them.
Yes, they did.
When friends told you about them, you knew who that person was that was making those claims, correct?
Correct.
You were well aware of the person had a very strong and large social media presence.
I didn't know how large or what his presence were, but yes, I knew he had a blog.
Well, you know now because you follow that blogger now, don't you?
I do follow him, yes.
You pay for a subscription?
I do not.
Did you get one for free?
I did not.
And in following that blogger, you know full well the power that person has to get attention from the community to harass, correct?
Yes.
You knew there was pressure for you to testify a certain way in this case, didn't you?
I did not know I was being required to testify a certain way. I was also at the time dealing with the loss of my wife.
Oh, sorry.
I was not paying any attention to any social media.
It's like I didn't give a fuck what was going on
Sorry for your
online.
loss, but you are aware during the
Brennan, sorry for your loss, but you were aware. Everything Brennan asked from here is just kind of done.
as you follow it, you can see there are oftentimes articles about you.
No.
Haven't you ever been encouraged to do the right thing?
No.
Haven't you ever been
Where is my record scratch? Are you insinuating that the words do the right thing are a veiled threat? Didn't we just go over this with another witness like 2 days ago? If I am misremembering, please let me know, but I think I have this correct. And I might have created a false memory here because I still don't know if it was weirdly or wildly long period of time that anyone may or may not have been in the Sallyport, but would an online blogger or the commissioner of Boston PD, who is your boss, be more persuasive in the equation of do the right thing? Because a couple days ago, I think we learned that do the right thing meant just tell the truth. I thought that's where we were at with do the right thing. I thought it just meant get up there and tell the truth. Are you insinuating, Hank, something nefarious with do the right thing? How the fuck are you arguing out of both sides of your mouth in like a 2-day proximity? Is it a veiled threat for testify how we want you to? Or is it just get up there and tell the truth? What is this line of questioning? I'm going to summarize the testimony of Brian Loughran, the plow driver who testified about plowing 34 Fairview and the roads adjacent to 34 Fairview, not seeing anything unusual on the lawn until he saw a Ford Edge parked going up Fairview in the street. And there was a procedure to call that in, and he didn't do that. He also testified that his brother is a town selectman. Remember, Chris Albert, we know from evidence, is also a town selectman for Canton. We heard that this witness had worked at Chris Albert's pizza shop, had regularly delivered pizzas to the Albert residents, knew that 34 Fairview was Brian Albert's residence, was familiar with it, and noted that that vehicle was parked in front of the home when he was plowing, and instead of calling it in, he just plowed around it. In cross-examination, we got to a lot of questions about, did you remember this time to be at 3 a.m. or 3:30 or 4:30? And we saw video where Brennan was showing dash cam video saying, was that your plow truck? And in some of them, too, he said, yes, that was my plow truck. In the others, he said, I don't recognize that truck. There's another plow driver who's a contractor plowing this route as well. And that one looked like a pickup truck. When we got into the rest of cross-examination, it was about online. The internet has entered the chat. Did you know that a blogger was talking about you? Did you know that a blogger was threatening you? And this witness said, I knew somebody was talking about me online. My friends told me. I didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel harassed. I didn't feel like I was being pressured to change my testimony. And he also said, during that time, my wife had just passed and I wasn't paying attention. My friends were telling me what was going on online. He seemed uncomfortable with any attention and annoyed by any attention. He did not say that he felt threatened or harassed. He did seem put out and annoyed. And the prosecution went down that road quite a long way. But they said this about you online. They said this about you online. They called your boss. They were calling your boss. Weren't you worried about your livelihood? It seemed very much like Hank Brennan was trying to get this witness to say that, well, I was being harassed online before my testimony, and then I testified, and then I was being celebrated online. And this witness didn't move away when he said, yes, the attention online changed after I testified. But he also said, I was doing my job and I came to testify because I was doing my job. I didn't want any of this. I don't know if Brennan was truly trying to get this witness to say, oh yeah, I was being harassed, so I just said whatever on the stand so the online harassment would stop. Because I don't think this witness was ever going to say that. I don't think that's true. Or if he was trying to insinuate that the blogger, who he asked if was friendly with anyone in court, and the witness said, yes, I think he's friendly with the defense team, was Brennan trying to insinuate that the defense is strong-arming witnesses to come into court and say what they want them to say? And will we see him argue that later? But what stood out to me quite a lot in the cross-examination is that at one point, Brennan was crossing this witness saying, but didn't they tell you to do the right thing? Wow, Brennan, are you insinuating that that's a threat to get somebody to change their testimony? Interesting cross-examination. And then by the time we got to redirect, it was, did you feel harassed online? No. Did you want any of this attention? No. Were you just at work that day? Yes. I don't know if that cross-examination is going to change anyone's mind about this witness's testimony. Maybe it will. But I think for everyone seeing his testimony the first time, what do you mean there was a car near the flagpole, near where John O'Keefe was found, around 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning, when the plow driver was plowing the road and had to plow around that car that he didn't see earlier in his shift? Isn't that interesting?
And while you were having this conversation with Karen, was it an easy conversation back and forth?
Very easy.
Where were you located within the waterfall while you were having this conversation?
We were at a height. I don't remember where we were talking. We were talking. We were sitting down talking.
It was a high top.
At a table.
And how close did you get to her when you were speaking with her?
We know it was a high top.
In order for someone to hear you, because of the band being so loud, we were probably a couple feet from each other.
And in what direction were you facing when you were speaking to her? And I'm talking in relation to Karen.
Huh?
I don't remember if she was next to me at this point. She could have been next to me at this point.
All right. And your face would have been facing where?
Towards her face?
At her.
Okay. That actually was the question. I'm sorry. This is kind of a stilted way to talk, but I have to ask the questions this way.
Where were you looking?
We were face to face.
At her face.
There you go. All right. So in other words, Karen was also facing you when she was speaking to you?
Correct.
Did you notice what Karen was drinking?
So she was drinking a drink it was a clear liquid out of a clear glass, and I assumed it to be alcohol of some sort, but I'm not sure.
And while you were talking with her, can you describe, was the conversation coherent?
Very coherent.
Was she making sense?
She was.
Was she engaged in the conversation?
She was.
That goes to level of intoxication, right?
And did you make any observations regarding her sobriety?
She seemed fine to me.
And you're a pharmacist, correct?
I am a
And
pharmacist.
you were that night.
I was that night.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Was your last image of Karen and John, both of them walking to the car and Karen walking to the driver's side door of that car?
Correct.
That night it was a celebratory mood?
Correct.
Everybody was getting along fine?
Yes, we were. Yes.
You were speaking to the defendant for some time?
Most of the time. Correct.
You saw her at points hugging Jen McCabe?
Correct.
Interesting strategy on cross.
You knew John.
I did.
He was a kind man,
Very kind.
generous,
Very generous.
thoughtful,
Very thoughtful.
soft-spoken.
Yes.
That night was particularly different. He
She
was
sound-
extraordinarily proud and happy, wasn't he?
It sounded to me like she was surprised that Brennan knew that. Didn't it? Like soft spoken. And it sounded like she was surprised that Brennan knew that about John.
Yes, he was.
And you could see him emote about his accomplishment that his daughter got into private school.
Correct.
Did you talk to John that night?
I did.
No further questions.
All right, Ms. Kolokithas.
She looks
you are
confused.
Okay, thank
She's
you.
like, that was easy. I am so happy that we are done with court for the day and I am not going to be late. There is much relief. Also, the testimony of Karina Kolokithas is really sad testimony for me. That night was just a normal night with friends until it wasn't. It's just tremendously sad, right? And she's a delightful witness and wasn't forcing emotion, which we've seen with so many witnesses. And the fact that she wasn't forcing emotion really makes it more emotional testimony for me. It's a normal night. Everyone is celebratory. John is over the moon, excited for his niece, for the future they're going to have, for everything to come. And then everything goes sideways. And here's what's so frustrating to me about this case still. I am an attorney. I've been an attorney for 20 years at this point. A lot of law is gray, but oftentimes when you get to criminal law, things are not always as gray. A lot of the cases we look at, there might be bits that are gray, but most of it is pretty, oh, I understand what happened here. And the frustrating thing about this case is that at the end of the day, it is very hard to pin to, I feel like I understand what happened here. And with certain witnesses, that resonates so much more. And I think at the end of the day, Karina Kolokithas is one of those witnesses where even though she is talking about what she saw, she's talking about the evening at the waterfall, she's not talking about what happened after everybody left the waterfall. It highlights how from the time everyone leaves the waterfall, something horrible happens. But what that thing is, we just don't quite know. Or at least that's where I am with this case. We have witnesses on this side and we have witnesses on this side, and we have witnesses saying, I've seen these injuries in a slip and fall. I've seen these injuries when somebody just falls backwards after a heart attack. These injuries can be caused by somebody falling. These injuries can be caused this way, this way, this way. The injuries to the arm are caused by a dog. The injury to the arm are caused by a taillight. But there are still so many questions. So at the end of day 27, Karina Kolokithas took the stand to talk about the night at the waterfall and talk about the Canton basketball game for maybe the first or maybe second time in this trial, not the 207th. Talk about seeing John and Karen at the waterfall and that they were sweet with one another, that it was a fun night. It was a celebratory mood. And that was the cross-examination of Hank Brennan. Everyone was in a good mood. Everybody was celebratory. Jen McCabe and Karen were hugging. Everybody was having a good time. But the defense broke down the waterfall video again, and I wonder if it will be more impactful now because you see the waterfall video again, and the jury doesn't have the ability to go online and rewind and watch it all they want. They've only seen it a few times in court. And the defense zoomed in to Brian Higgins, Brian Albert, and Chris Albert, with Chris Albert grabbing Brian Higgins' arm, with Higgins looking like he's looking in the direction of John O'Keefe, and they're saying something to each other, though nobody has testified what that is. So you've got the witness on one hand saying it was a jovial evening. People were having fun. I walked out with Karen and John. But you also have this video where the defense is saying, but what's going on over here? And will that leave a doubt in the juror's mind about whether that was a jovial evening, whether they were just chatting with each other, whether it was, hey, come on to this party. Hey, come with us. We're going over to Brian's house. Come on, we're going to go drink. Or was it, come on, we're going outside. Are we going outside? Come on. And because nobody has testified to what was said and that video has no sound, both sides, I think, will argue it. But I think we'll probably see the defense argue it more. But at the end of the day, the jury has the video and they're going to get to interpret it for themselves. But I think at the end of this day, with the court being dark tomorrow, the jury is left with a witness I'm sure they like very much, with testimony that reminds everyone that this evening was a normal evening like everything else until it wasn't. And I wonder if one of the biggest takeaways, other than the video from Karina Kolokithas, is one, sometimes when you want to stay home, maybe staying home. But two, she talked to Karen Read for more than 50 minutes. She knows Karen Read. She was drinking water all night, and she did not perceive Karen Read to be intoxicated. Will that testimony be persuasive to the jury about Karen Read's level of intoxication? Thanks for joining me. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss updates on your favorite cases, you're going to need the Loughran app at loughran.com. That way you can stay in the loop on the cases that matter most to you, and you never know when you're going to catch feelings for a new case. So make sure you get it for free on iOS and Android. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a Law Nerd.